Andreas, first of all, thank you for participating in our survey of what will we discuss our descendant with, and now for your time and availability for this interview. Could you please share a few words about yourself and your profession? Preparing the interview, I found that your research interests lie in healthcare, ecosystems, sustainability, and futures.
So thank you very much, Darius. Yeah, it was a pleasure participating. Because I thought about this, it actually allows you to think about the things that you're not allowed to think about, right? The disgusting things. It's always something that interests me for some reason or another. And of course, in professional life, maybe these are not the sort of questions that you get asked normally. My background, I have been a futurist for a long time. Even while studying in the 90s, I was playing around with my colleagues, with my friends, and thinking about how life would be in 2025, which is coming up quite soon. So I've been thinking about foresight, future studies for a long time. It actually made me sign up with the Rand Corporation for a couple of years. So I've been a policy consultant for twice 6 years. First with the Rand Corporation, then with a competitor that's very, very similar. I spent some time in academia. And for the last 2 years, I've been more focusing on investment.
Were any of the 93 ideas submitted by you and other futurists also eye-opening for you?
One I found really interesting also in the current debate about artificial intelligence and metaverses and all these wonderful things that people keep on repeating themselves about, is that we are considering only one reality, thus ignoring our impact on the other ones. And I don't know exactly what this submission wanted to say here. Maybe it's the sort of the fear of getting stuck in an alternate reality, or maybe it was sort of mentioning that we're missing out on all the other beautiful realities online that and are just stuck in our boring lives. You can interpret it in several ways. I found that one really nice.
Great. I'm not sure you're aware, but you have submitted many ideas which were valued highly as most eye-opening by the public. But let's start with the winning idea: nature still lacking legal rights in 2022. Why do you think our descendants in 2122 might see that as barbaric?
The idea that nature itself has rights to determine its own future, right? I mean, that is just a fascinating one. I think it's a recognition of how important nature is for us, or maybe single organisms like trees or animals. And yeah, recognition that this is so important and we cannot leave it up to humans to decide for them. And we've seen before some legal or mental tricks that we try to figure out. For example, treating nature as a commodity, or treating nature maybe as an object that we own. So you can you can say, look, don't touch this tree because it's my property. The tree should be able to determine for itself and have its own value. So yeah, it's one of those things that have been discussed in at least environmental literature for quite some time. And I think I sent, in response to your email message, I already sent a little summary of, there are two natural phenomena in New Zealand that had its own legal entity. So it was a natural park, I think, in 2012, and a river in 2017 that received its own personal entity, and thus it could hire a barrister or a legal person to actually represent their interests. I thought it was fascinating.
One of your ideas also scored the third place, namely that there is no recognition for sophisticated non-human intelligence, sentience, and its needs, except for a few cases. What do you think is needed for that to change?
The fact that these organisms are very important to us, and that we're damaging them as human beings, and that we should be aware of that. Um, on the sort of the more technical side, I'm pretty sure that there will be all kinds of commercial interests to drive big corporations forward and to push legal systems to make changes.
Which idea, in your opinion, shall have won from all the 93 submitted by the futurists from all over the world?
I found it really, really interesting, right? The fact that you're not allowed to make kids, basically, until you have been screened to be free of disease. I don't know, the right hair color, the right skin color, the right eye color. You can think of historical analogies that are not so pleasant. You can think about science fiction movies like Gattaca that talk about this as well. But from a rational perspective, there are decent arguments to at least ban disease, I would say, from our human condition. So yeah, checking people before they can procreate, and to check whether they might be passing on some disease. That's at least I find it fascinating, but scary at the same time. Um, yeah, maybe personally, I think I would not be in favor of it, but I understand the logic. So I found that one that I really had to think about.
I know you opted for the idea of killing animals and eating animal meat as the one to win the competition as well. The reason why it hasn't won might actually be a good thing, since this means that this notion is widespread and hardly eye-opening to most people who participated in the survey. But if the awareness of this problem is so high, then the question is, are we doing enough to put a stop to it? Will our ancestor think we did enough?
Necessarily want to talk too much about politics, but I'm involved in the Dutch Party for the Animals. And of course, one of the things that we strive for is to end animal killing. By consumption is one of the most obvious ones, right? And it's really fascinating because I've seen over the last few years, and I don't know how it is in the rest of Europe or even the rest of the world. I have no clue about. But we've seen more and more options in supermarkets where there are sort of meat-free, soy or bean-based or vegetable-based food. And on the one hand, I see the sort of the shelves in the supermarket become bigger, and at the same time, I look at the statistics, and for some strange reason, we are not eating less meat. Still, I think that many of the sort of environmental problems that we face are also quite much linked to meat consumption, methane, nitrogen. So yeah, I hope in 100 years that we all think, wow, how much meat did we eat? My God, why couldn't we have done with much less?
Yeah, exactly. One of your ideas is quite connected with the feeling of disgust, also in our times. I'm talking about urine and feces. You suggested that many nutrition and useful molecules shall not be flushed away, as it is the case today in Western societies, at least. Do you think it will change in the future?
But of course, again, also this one was not an original thought of mine at all. I know that, for example, here in the Netherlands, but I'm pretty sure that's already international, that in big music halls, for example, big places where a lot of people come together, and so also a lot of people go to the toilet, urine is separated and actually treated in a different way than sort of the normal toilet water. First of all, you use way less uh, uh, drinking water that you could have used in a different way, and actually you can extract useful substances So it is already being done in airports, in large music halls, and of course, well, the question is, do we do it at home? Maybe not. Maybe that requires too much installation of weird equipment.
Mm, Also, touching up on another idea of yours, in 2022, procreation required sexual intercourse. Besides technological barriers, what do you think would need to change in society for this to start being treated as one of the weird barbarisms of the past?
Yeah, I see people retreating behind the screens more and more, and um, at the same time, technology facilitating that retreat. And we already know, of course, that you don't need a man and a woman at all anymore nowadays, technologically anyway, to procreate. So yeah, it's I think it's conceivable that if we continue finding our technologies more engaging, more interesting than real life people, that we will move towards a situation of social awkwardness, of not wanting to be in each other's neighborhood. Maybe also, my own personal experience right now. I'm coughing, I'm sneezing. We've had Corona. Doesn't help, of course, for our feeling that personal contact is good for you. So yeah, I think it's still far away, but I could imagine that we're moving in a more technology facilitated direction where at least physical presence of other people is not that important.
Yeah. Talking more in general terms now, in your opinion, what is the largest challenge and threat to humanity, other species, and the Earth in general, and why?
Well, yeah, given my previous answers, shouldn't surprise you that I think sort of climate change, global biodiversity loss are things that are up high upon my list.
What is the role of futurists in making our descendants praise us more, or at least not feel disgusted about our actions or lack of actions?
I think one of the important roles of futurists is that they ask questions about the future, right? They don't take the future for granted. I'd like to hope that at least the role of futurists is that they ask the question, is this the direction we're interested in running into? Are there other possible directions? If so, what would need to happen to get there, or what could happen to get there? So it's sort of just asking about the inevitability of the future, and opening eyes, making people think whether this is the right direction and the direction we want to be moving into. I think that is an important role, and I hope that at least some futurists are willing to play that role, and sometimes by putting up the crazy person cap, and suggesting weird stuff. And this is, in all honesty, this is why I immediately snapped onto your question as well.
Good. Andreas, I think we covered all the questions. So it was very interesting to learn more about your views and opinions. Congratulations once again. And
Thank you very much.
thank you very much for your time.